And I think we've got everything rolling nice and easy now. Guardian, it should allow you to come up. There we go. It says that you're a speaker. Let me see if I can't get you co-hosted here. I think that we can. There we go. Everything seems to be working. How's it going, Guardian? Not sure if you can hear me or you can speak, but should be sending you the co-host invite now. There we go.
Test. Can you hear me?
There we go. I hear you.
How's it going?
It is going good. How you doing?
I'm also doing pretty well.
The
Just you know, just waiting. That's the main thing. This month is gonna continue to be a whole lot of nothing until FOMC, I think.
Yeah, I was looking at it. I'm pulling it up here now. The chances of rate cuts, and I don't know, man. I was talking to some people yesterday who were saying that I'm wrong. I feel like this is a lot of hopium, though. It looks like markets are betting that we're going to have back-to-back rate cuts. And I don't know. That seems like a lot of hope, in my opinion. But who knows? That's what the markets are. And they're like 94% that we're getting to 350 to 375 in December. And in October, 400 to 375. So, I mean, that's pretty aggressive, I would say. I'm not so sure that we're going to be that we're going to see back-to-back rate cuts in October and December.
I think we will.
You think we go
I
back to
think we will.
back?
Yeah, I believe we will.
I mean, man, if they do that, we're in a different liquidity scenario for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's that like two back-to-back rate cuts gets us to where like the neutral rate that we were at in 2021, which allowed for the 2021 bull market. And at the same time, QT is already only nominally continuing, and JP recently just said that in the coming months, QT will come to an end. And those are the two main things as far as monetary policy goes that matter for having some kind of crazy euphoric altcoin season. And I mean, if those things happen, we could see like what I believe the most likely scenario is at this point is I think that conditions are going to gradually improve from altcoins from here out. That's the first thing. I don't think there's more
What up,
downside on
Jacool?
altcoins,
What's up, Petite Boss? How's it going? I
especially
know you
against
guys are in the space
Bitcoin
as well.
or
We're
against the
double
dollar.
timing it today.
I think things are just going to gradually get better. I think altcoins are going to be outperformed by Bitcoin in the immediate future because I think Bitcoin's going to have a move very similar to what it did in November of last year. So people are going to be like, "Oh, why is Bitcoin up another 50% in a month?" And, or 30-40% in a month, and altcoins aren't really moving because they're just still building momentum. And then I think, closer to December, we get
We
that
got
second
Coco in
rate
here. Shout out
cut.
Coco.
The market gets some kind of, I think there would be some kind of bullish narrative to go along with it, beyond just the rate cuts. Like maybe we get another stimulus package, or, maybe airdrop season is kicked off and there's a lot of liquidity on chain. Because we can already see hints of that happening, right? With a couple different major airdrops on the way. And then, from there, we have the second rate cut in December. Lots of liquidity on chain. QT is over and maybe QE is started. That part's not super important. And then also, that's when altcoins really have a blow off top. And I think more likely than not, Bitcoin will have already topped for the cycle. Like it'll probably hit 150 to 170K before altcoin euphoria starts. And then I think, as Bitcoin distributes around that 150 to 170K range, that's when altcoins go absolutely insane. And altcoins will likely top in January or February. That's kind of where my bias is right now.
You,
But that can always change. We'll see.
it's something interesting kind of on that topic. And I do see Coco down there in the audience. Hello, Coco. How's it going? If you want to come here and say hello. Mr. BNB himself. He's been talking about BNB before it was cool. I see a bunch of other awesome people as well. I see Cool, Lumen, Chaos Joker, Ati Boss, Jake, Nico, Priest. I mean, we got a bunch of really cool people in here. But one of the things that I've been really looking at closely, especially with speaking of BNB. I did definitely want to give Coco a shout out, but it's actually this is professional here, so we actually had a segue. So before BNB really started to kick off, you started to see the DEX volumes on Pancake Swap increase, and that increase started to happen late April, early May. And when you saw those Pancake Swap DEX volumes start to increase, I think that should have been a pretty significant sign for us that BNB season was here. And
Hmm.
Pancake Swap has been the clear winner of the. Now again, there's Aster. I understand there's a lot of other things that went down, but in terms of actual raw volume and kind of like the first domino to fall, Pancake Swap Dex volumes were what I saw happening first. And Cake at that time was around like I want to say it was maybe $1.80, and I think it ran up to like $4.50 or something like that before we saw that big wipeout last Friday. But I'm actually looking at it now and thinking there's probably a corollary on Ethereum. So similarly, when we saw the biggest DEX, Pancake Swap, absorb a lot of that volume, and we saw the price of the token essentially 2x, 2.5x. I think it's sitting at around 350 now. From the time we saw DEX volumes increase to the time last Friday during the big crash, I think we're going to see something similar on Ethereum. And so I'm tracking Uniswap volume closely right now. And if we see Uniswap volume really start to increase, actual DEX volume, not the price of the token, not volume of the token, but actual DEX volume on Uniswap start to increase, I would imagine that is a signal for us that Ethereum season is on the horizon. And it's the thesis that I have for why I think a Uniswap play, an actual Uni token play, might be with us. Just because it happened on BNB and we saw it happen with Pancake Swap. And trust me, I know we're trenchers and we're sitting here trying to buy it a million and run it up 100x, 200x, etc. But if you have raw underlying data showing that Uniswap DEX volumes are increasing 2x, 3x, 4x, like we saw on Pancake Swap, you can actually hit it with some significant size, and you can make a lot more money on a play like that than you may on in the trenches. Let's put it that way. Go ahead, Guardian. I know I saw you unmute, but that's kind of like something that I've been really tracking and monitoring recently here, and we're gonna bring up Coco as well.
I actually have been tracking the Uniswap volume as well because I actually have a scheduled tweet for later today, comparing Uniswap and Pump Fun, that I think is kind of funny. But Uniswap's weekly volume is actually up 330% as opposed to last week. Right now, like so far, the weekly volume right now, or I guess the 7 day volume, is 52 billion. um and so it's flying. It's cooking with gas. And I think the only reason that the uni token hasn't really exploded is just because the difference between Uniswap and Pancake Swap is that Pancake Swap, they take a small portion of all the liquidity pool fees, it, and then it buys back into the cake. Sorry. My throat's a bit scratchy. It buys back into the cake token, where Uniswap doesn't do that, and the Uni token is purely a governance token. Uh, yeah, and I think, man, I Uniswap would be such it'd be a much bigger name if they just did these few changes. They, one, like a portion, it could be a very small portion of liquidity pools. Um, the fees went back into buying and burning Uni tokens. Two, if they made Uni the gas token for the Uni chain L2. And three, if they took some of that buyback Uniswap tokens and did another airdrop down the road, similar to what they did in 2021, that really helped kick off the on-chain bull market or the bull run on Ethereum last cycle. If they did that, everyone would come back to Ethereum in droves, and Unichain would be a main name this cycle. And I mean, already I've been seeing Unichain creep up there in the volumes. Right now, it's
I wanted to
sitting
look at
at,
this here.
let me see, I've got it up on my computer. It's at
Someone sent me
number
this.
9 in
I've literally
volume.
turned a few
So it's
thousand
above
into millions
Tron,
purely
which
through
is a
sheer luck.
huge,
Five
huge
different occasions, even
name,
though I had multiple
because that's
chances with
what,
10
like,
extras in
Tron is
I never took
basically
them.
used for Venmo. It's like the Venmo equivalent over in Asia.
Okay.
That's why there's a massive stablecoin market cap on Tron. And Unichain is sitting at, let's see, $482.79 million in DEX volume in the past 24 hours. For a bit of perspective, that's, over 3 times the volume that Pump Fund has had in the past 24 hours. And it's also actually, is the Pump Fund volume, is that number that I pulled the weekly or daily?
That I'm not
Okay.
sure. Real
Okay,
quick though,
it's
kind of interjecting on that real quick to give you some context though. I actually did a lot of analysis the other day on the correlation between Uniswap volume, DEX volume, and the price of the token. And funny that you bring up that's a great point because the correlation was much weaker than it was on PancakeSwap. It was very strong on PancakeSwap, and it was very weak on Uniswap. And I was trying to figure out maybe there's some lag, stuff like that. But to your point, PancakeSwap is actually putting some of the revenues back into the token, where Uniswap doesn't do that. Is what you're suggesting, right? So like that would make sense that there's
Uniswap
not.
actually, they don't make any revenue outside of the chain. Like they don't make revenue from liquidity pools. They just make revenue from swaps, and
Got it.
PancakeSwap makes revenue from liquidity
So
pools.
so that could be why there's a weak correlation between DEX volumes and price movement on Uniswap, but there was a much stronger correlation between price volume and DEX volumes on PancakeSwap. So that's good to know for sure. That's a good that's something that I overlooked.
And they can always turn that back on, by the way. It wasn't always, no buybacks or anything like that. They could always just go and turn it back on. However, even if they don't do that, I still think there's going to be a massive play with Uni this cycle. When when Ethereum really heats up and it gets crazy, we're talking six, seven, eight, $9,000 per Ethereum, somewhere in that range. I think people are gonna realize,
And guys,
okay,
I've got some bad news.
Ethereum
I've
is
got an
is alive
IRL
and
call that
well.
just popped up that I'm
Ethereum
gonna have
on
to take
chain is
here.
insane,
So once this
right? Because
space is done, I'm gonna have to rug
there's
it in
only
about 20
really
minutes,
on
and
Ethereum,
then
there's only
I'll have
really
to rug
like
the
30 to 50
stream as
at
well. I actually might
best
rug the stream now
quality
because I'm
meme
not gonna be able to
coins,
stream
right?
after
So
this anyways.